My name is Elena, and I am 38 years old. I am a trauma surgeon at a busy medical center in Chicago, which means I am trained to walk into blood, panic, shattered bones, and screaming families, and still know exactly what must be done first. In the operating room, panic kills people faster than injury, so I forced myself to develop a cold, surgical precision. But nothing in my years of medical residency prepared me for the sound I heard when I came home early that afternoon because a scheduled seminar had been canceled. My 10-year-old daughter, Maya, was sobbing inside my own house. It was the kind of terrified, exhausted cry that makes a mother stop breathing before she even understands why. I pushed the front door open wider and froze just long enough to see the truth. My older brother, Arthur, was in my living room, looming over my terrified child, while my stepmother, Tamara, was tearing through my bedroom like a thief who already believed she deserved everything she touched. Drawers were yanked open. My late father's old watch collection was missing from the dresser. Papers from my file cabinet were scattered across the hallway floor. Someone had searched for the property deed, the medical clinic investment documents, and the sealed blue folder I kept locked away for a reason. For 1 second, the surgeon in me tried to triage the scene. Child first, exit second, threat third, evidence fourth. The mother in me wanted to run straight at them and tear them apart. Instead, I stepped back into the shadow beside the hallway corner, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911 without making a sound. When the operator answered, I whispered into the receiver, "My family broke into my house. They're threatening my daughter. Send police to my address immediately." The operator told me to stay on the line, and I did, even though every instinct in my body screamed at me to rush into that room. Maya was trying to be brave the way children try to be brave when adults terrify them. Silent, stiff, trying not to make things worse. Arthur stood over her with one hand braced on the wall, blocking the hallway as if my home belonged to him. Tamara called out from my bedroom, dumping dresser drawers onto the hardwood floor and muttering curses under her breath. I heard the sharp crack of a fragile picture frame breaking against the wall. Arthur snapped at Maya, demanding to know where I kept the blue folder, telling her not to act stupid. Maya cried harder, repeating that she didn't know. Tamara yelled that I always hid things. Jewelry, contracts, bank papers. Because I thought being a chief surgeon made me better than them. My hand tightened around the phone. I was still half hidden, and the operator could hear enough to understand I was not exaggerating. I checked Arthur's hands. No weapon. I checked Maya's distance from him. Too close. I checked Tamara's open bag on my bed. My father's gold watch and my mother's pearl necklace were already inside it. That necklace and a share in a private medical practice had been left to me in my father's will. Arthur had always called it family property, even though the paperwork said otherwise. And Tamara had always called it unfair, even though she had burned through her own inheritance within 3 years. I had helped them more times than I wanted to admit. I paid Arthur's car loans when he claimed his business was collapsing, covered Tamara's expensive resort trips that she labeled as medical emergencies, and provided endless loans that were never emergencies after the check cleared. I even missed Maya's piano recital once because Arthur called me in tears saying the bank was foreclosing on him, only for me to learn later he had used the money on a luxury ski trip. Each time I told myself love meant patience. Each time they learned my guilt had a dollar amount. But I never signed over my house, I never gave them my clinic shares, and now I understood why they had waited until my hospital schedule said I would be trapped in surgery until evening. They did not come to ask. They came to corner my child, steal what they could, and force me to surrender the rest. Arthur lowered his voice, telling Maya that her mother was selfish, and that if I didn't sign the papers, people were going to lose everything. That was the moment something inside me went completely still. Not calm, but surgical and precise. Tamara came out of the bedroom, holding a stack of documents, grumbling that she found copies of the agreements, but not the transfer certificates. Arthur cursed and said, "Then we make her sign new ones. She will if she wants her daughter to stop being scared." The operator's voice came quietly through my phone, telling me officers were entering the driveway. I lifted the phone just enough to keep recording video and stepped into the living room. Maya saw me first, her face flashing with hope and relief. Arthur spun around, barking my name as if I was the intruder. Tamara appeared behind him, clutching my jewelry and my property folder. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then I said, "Maya, come to me." Arthur shifted to block her, and I raised my phone, warning him to stop. Arthur asked if I was recording them, and Tamara called me a psycho for recording my own family. I told them calmly that I was recording 2 adults who broke into my house, stole my property, and threatened my daughter. Arthur took a step toward me, telling me to be careful how I spoke to them, a sentence that might have worked on me years ago when I still believed helping family meant bleeding quietly so they could call it love. But seeing Maya hiding behind my leg, shaking so hard her fingers dug into my scrubs, every old rule died. I told him he was not in charge here, that this was my house, my child, and my documents. Tamara threw the folder onto the coffee table, complaining that everything was always mine. "Because I worked for it," I replied. Arthur laughed bitterly, asking if I thought being a doctor made me untouchable, claiming they made sacrifices for me. I told him they made loans out of my guilt, and I paid them until I finally learned the difference between helping and being hunted. Outside, sirens began to cut through the Illinois air. Arthur's face changed from rage to calculation, suddenly pleading with me to tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Tamara stepped closer, desperately begging me to think about what this would do to them. I looked at the folder, noticing my missing spare kitchen key in Tamara's bag, the one she had stolen during Maya's birthday party weeks ago. The front door opened and 2 Cook County police officers entered with calm authority. Arthur immediately put his hands up, putting on a wounded, fatherly performance, claiming it was just a emotional family disagreement. I stepped forward and stated clearly that these people broke in using a stolen key, ransacked my home, stole jewelry, and used my daughter as leverage to extort financial documents. When the officers ordered Tamara to drop her bag, the truth spilled onto the table. My father's watch, a stolen spare key, blank transfer forms, a printed copy of my hospital schedule, and a fraudulent notary stamp that didn't belong to anyone in my house. My attorney and longtime friend Kevin arrived later that evening and reviewed the police inventory at my kitchen table, confirming this was a calculated case of attempted fraud, burglary, coercion, and identity crime. Arthur and Tamara had spent years counting on my guilt, but now they were about to meet my documentation. And the thing about documentation is simple. It does not cry, it does not explain, and it cannot be manipulated at Thanksgiving dinner. Preparing for court felt like preparing for a major surgery, gathering the scans, identifying the damage, and removing what must be cut away before it poisons the entire body. The prosecutor used Maya's recorded interview with a child therapist so she wouldn't have to face her abusers in the courtroom. When Arthur's defense attorney suggested I misunderstood the situation due to exhaustion from a long hospital shift, I turned to him and said, "I have worked 24-hour shifts and still known the difference between a family visit and a burglary." The courtroom went completely silent when the prosecutor played the audio recording of Arthur saying, "She'll sign if she wants her daughter to stop being scared." The judge was unyielding, stating that family status does not reduce the seriousness of coercion, it increases the betrayal of trust. Arthur pleaded guilty to felony burglary, attempted extortion, and child endangerment, receiving 3 years in state custody. Tamara received a split sentence of jail time and probation, along with a permanent mark on her background check that destroyed her employment. The court ordered full restitution for my legal costs, home repairs, and Maya's therapy, resulting in liens placed against Arthur's remaining assets. In the months that followed, our home became quiet again. But it was a stronger kind of quiet, built on updated security, enforced boundaries, and therapy sessions. I taught Maya that being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared, and that consequences are simply what happens when truth finally gets witnesses. When Maya asked me if we were still a family, I looked at her and said, "Yes, you and me, and the people who love us without trying to own us." I stopped mistaking blood for permission, and I stopped offering my daughter's safety as the price of family loyalty.